Welcome to the 10th annual Dirty Dozen List Reveal. We're so thrilled to have you with us. I'm Linda Nealon, the Director of Corporate and Strategic Initiatives at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation exists to build a world where people can live and love free of sexual abuse and exploitation. We defend human dignity. We oppose all forms of sexual abuse and exploitation, and we expose the connections and systems that support and sustain these harms. Our relentless team does this through litigation, research, training, coalition building, policy advocacy, and corporate advocacy, which of course includes galvanizing the public through campaigns like the one we're launching today. Just a brief outline of the next 45 minutes or so. We'll briefly go over the goals of the Dirty Dozen list for those of you who may be new to this campaign. We'll highlight some of the many victories of 2021. Then we'll play the video revealing our Dirty Dozen list. And then I will be joined by 5 colleagues to highlight 6 targets that we feel are especially important to elevate. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. Feel free to put in questions into the Q&A feature throughout the presentation. And I promise that any questions we don't get to, we will answer perhaps in the follow-up email. Also, just want to give a trigger warning. A lot of the text can be very disturbing, and we do block out and blur photos as a practice. But again, just take care of yourselves. So what is Dirty Dozen List? The Dirty Dozen List names 12 mainstream institutions that facilitate, normalize, and often benefit from sexual exploitation. This includes child sex abuse, rape, sexual objectification, pornography, prostitution, and sex trafficking. This list is comprised of corporations, brands, organizations, and agencies that you likely know well. They may be entities that you even interacted with today to buy a homemade craft for your home, or send pictures to your friend, or to buy your morning coffee. And they exert enormous influence and power politically, economically, socially, and culturally. And while many of them do provide us with great products, entertainment, and necessary services, unfortunately, they are also perpetuating and enabling violence and harm. How? By inherently dangerous product design, through insufficient policies or lack of enforcement of what is on paper, by buttressing the infrastructure of abusive entities, or simply turning a blind eye in order to protect their bottom line. The goal of the Dirty Dozen list is to put enough pressure on these institutions that they change their problematic policies and behaviors and proactively advance a culture of dignity within their own institutions, within their industry, and throughout society at large. Last year, the majority of the list was comprised of tech companies. We wanted to expose predatory businesses that were capitalizing on the deepening vulnerabilities and societal chaos that COVID-19 created. We also wanted to call out the tech giants that benefited from record revenues as the world moved online, yet did almost nothing to stem the increasing abuse of children on their own platforms. This year's list once again features several tech giants, including those that continue to reap soaring revenue without making substantive changes, leaving abuses and harms against their growing user base left to metastasize. We thought 2020 was bad. The Internet Watch Foundation called 2021 the worst year on record for child abuse online. And by the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children's latest numbers, by the end of this hour, more than 7,000 images of child sex abuse will be uploaded to the internet. And that often includes infants and toddlers. Just in the past 2 days, as we were doing our due diligence to review the evidence we've collected, 2 senior staff members accidentally stumbled on child sex abuse material and immediately reported it to NCMEC, the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children. This must stop, and it can. Today is also International Women's Day, a celebration of the many accomplishments of women around the world, but a solemn reminder that women too are experiencing sexual assault and domestic violence at devastatingly high rates, leading the UN to call violence against women the shadow pandemic. So this year, we're highlighting corporations furthering a rapidly growing crime affecting women known as image-based sexual abuse. or what some survivors call cybersexual terrorism that can include non-consensually recorded or shared explicit images, revenge porn, or deep fake pornography. Almost all these companies we're calling out have lofty corporate social responsibility statements. So we're challenging them to actually live up to those statements and fulfill their social obligation to do something, and do it with the urgency, commensurate with the gravity of the harms. It can seem like these institutions are utterly untouchable, unmovable, and remain largely unaccountable for placing profit over the public good. And even the most optimistic among us can feel daunted, doubting whether any effort, big or small, can make a difference. And it's true that these issues are beyond any family, any school, any church, any community, any one nonprofit to tackle on our own. But the good news is that together we can and do make a difference. Since 2013, the Dirty Dozen List and other Nkosi corporate campaigns have yielded some 125 major victories that you and others like you have made happen, often by taking the easy actions and tools we provide through the Dirty Dozen List. More on that later. Before we reveal this year's list, I just want to share my favorite win from 2021. For years, families were coming to us sharing stories of predators accessing their children and children accessing harmful materials such as hardcore pornography on school-issued Chromebooks. We pushed on Google to make Chromebooks safer for kids, asking them to turn on all the safety features by default and not leave it to parents and schools to try to figure it out. We named Chromebooks specifically to the 2021 Dirty Dozen list, and after thousands of people joined us in pleading with Google, they listened. On September 1st, they turned on all safety features like Safe Search and disabled problematic features like incognito mode for K through 12 Chromebooks and other educational products worldwide, literally affecting millions of kids. This was a direct result of Nkosi's and your advocacy that was publicly recognized by Google. One of the notes that we received from families: my son was the victim of unsolicited hardcore pornography on a Google Chromebook. Thank you for taking these steps to help ensure the emotional safety of our young children going forward. This move set a precedent that we are of defaulting to safety, a concept that we're pushing directly with tech companies like Apple and other social media companies, as well as advancing legislatively. We formally removed Chromebooks from the Dirty Dozen list. I wanted to leave you with a success story so that you could hold that hope and optimism that change is possible, as we now present the 2022 Dirty Dozen list.
Great. Hello, my name is Haley McNamara, and I'm Vice President at the National Center on Sexual Exploitation and Director of our International Division. Today, I'll be presenting on Reddit. Reddit is a popular community platform with approximately 48 million regular users, and it's known as the front page of the internet, but it should be known as a hub of sexual exploitation. Despite having an estimated net worth in the billions, Reddit refuses to spend the necessary resources on a sufficient number of moderators and readily available technological solutions. As reports indicate that Reddit is working to go public in 2022, it is egregiously long overdue for Reddit to prioritize user safety and preventing criminal conduct instead of prioritizing profits alone. As you can see on this slide, Reddit facilitates rampant image-based sexual abuse, a broad term that includes a multitude of harms, including non-consensual sharing of sexually explicit images. Entire subreddits are dedicated to this form of abuse. These subreddits are rampant, including groups where men trade explicit images of past or present romantic partners, or leaked, aka stolen, OnlyFans or other pornographic content. Reddit fosters this environment through a lack of moderation and the reality that there is no meaningful way to verify the age or consent of any of the people depicted in explicit content when uploaded to Reddit. Next. Further, subreddits and posts function as advertisements for prostitution and sex trafficking, guiding users, for example, to illicit massage parlor brothels or advertising meeting a person for paid sex offline. Next slide. Lastly, child sexual abuse materials, CSAM, sometimes known as child pornography, is also present on Reddit. In fact, in 2020, a survivor of child sex abuse reached out to our organization because videos of her exploitation were uploaded online, including on Reddit. In fact, Reddit hosted at least 28 unique URLs of this sexual abuse. Now just stop for a moment, put yourself in the shoes of the survivor, and imagine the trauma of this horrific exploitation being replayed over and over again online, even when you've reached out to the company asking them to take it down. And that's exactly what happened. The Nkosi Law Center sent a takedown request on behalf of the survivor to Reddit's CEO, Reddit's legal department, Reddit's information, contact, and help desk as well. Several months later, our lawyers still had not received a response or even acknowledgement from Reddit, despite being informed of the very serious federal crimes occurring on their website. We still do not have confirmation that that content has successfully been removed. Not only does Reddit turn a blind eye to illegal and harmful content on its site, survivor requests to remove images of their own abuse are going unanswered. And instead of prioritizing people's safety and well-being, Reddit is focused more on the profits of going public, hoping for an evaluation of over $15 billion, while continuing to ignore the myriad forms of exploitation that prop up its value. These are not mere accidents or coincidences. They are, in my opinion, evidence of where Reddit's priorities lie. Let us be clear. We are calling on any investment firms or investors that may be involved in Reddit's initial public offering to help hold Reddit accountable. We call on Reddit to implement survivor-centered practices and reporting mechanisms, adopt strong policies against sexually explicit content, invest in more proactive moderation, and more. And now my colleague, Lily Morick, International Advocacy Associate, will present another target.
Etsy is a popular online marketplace for unique and creative goods. Unfortunately, among the handcrafted and vintage products on the site, one can also find hardcore pornography, image-based sexual abuse, sex dolls, including ones which resemble minors, deeply misogynistic apparel, and much more. Here on the screen is an example of a sex doll we found on Etsy whose features resembled that of a minor. We also found this disturbing figurine depicting a young Asian girl blindfolded and chained for BDSM sex, as well as another figurine of 3 men brutally penetrating a single woman. Next slide, please. This tank top is an example of the horrifically misogynistic slogans featured in pages upon pages of Etsy apparel. One of the things which was most upsetting for me to discover, because I was not previously aware of the existence of this trend, was Etsy's vast offering of age play products. Age play refers to sexual role-playing where one partner pretends to be a child or a baby so as to reenact a scenario of child sexual abuse. Etsy should not be profiting from normalizing and fetishizing child sexual abuse, misogyny, and sexual exploitation. Our valued ally, Collective Shout, has been calling on Etsy to remove exploitative products from their platforms for over a year, but Etsy has callously and consistently ignored Collective Shout's campaign. As such, we are naming Etsy to the Dirty Dozen list for not only hosting these products, but for deliberately continuing to do so, even when the problem has been brought to their attention time and again. I'd now like to hand it over to my brilliant colleague, Summer Porter, Coordinator for Current Events and Special Projects, who will be presenting Discord.
Thank you, Lily. So this is Discord. Discord is a widely popular communication platform for adults and children alike. It's only become more popular since the pandemic, with over 150 million active users compared to 56 million in 2019. The demographic skews especially young on Discord. We don't have actual statistics of users, but millions of minors are actively using Discord every single day. It's very popular among gamers in particular, which is how it originally started. But now about 30% of Discord's users say that they use it for things besides gaming. Discord consistently fails to address the extensive sexually graphic, violent, and exploitative content on its thousands of private and public channels. Discord's inadequate age verification moderation procedures means that those millions of children and teen users are left with near unmitigated exposure to child sexual abuse material, non-consensual pornography trading, and the predatory grooming that are rampant on Discord's platform. Discord does not actively moderate the 6.7 million servers on its platform and instead relies on user reports, user moderation, third-party bots, and software that can scan images for signs of illegal material. You can see on the screen here some examples of the rampant pornography trading and non-consensual leaks, like they said in the presentation earlier, stolen material from OnlyFans, stolen non-consensual exploitation posted all over Reddit. On the very far left, you can see what it looks like on a very sexually graphic server dedicated to trading pornography. You can see all the different channels that are listed there on the side. And I was able to access this server on a 13-year-old account, despite Discord's rules and policies banning this type of thing from happening. I was still able to access this as a 13-year-old. So despite these tools and Discord's policies against CSAM and the sharing of non-consensual pornography, Discord is still rife with hardcore pornography, servers dedicated to trading non-consensual images, and the predatory grooming of children. When researchers checked in February 2022, over 43,000 servers were tagged as containing not safe for work content, which is now called age restricted by Discord in a very recent update. Discord also does not allow verified servers to post age-restricted content. However, Pornhub remains a verified active server with over 450,000 members, which is a very high amount for a public server. Nkosi researchers were able to join this server, the Pornhub official server, and despite the fact that many of those channels were age-gated, I wasn't able to actually click on them. As the 13-year-old, I was able to join a voice chat that shared tips on how to buy costumes for pornography, where they're wearing costumes and other things. So despite the fact that they do have age restrictions and age gates on Discord, they're easily circumvented. This was not difficult for me to do as a 13-year-old on Discord. There's abundant evidence that Discord's current moderation policies are not doing enough to catch and prevent the mass scale abuse happening across its platform. In 2020, 15,324 reports were made to NCMEC cyber tip line, and that's only in 2020. Here on the screen, you can see some egregious examples of grooming and sextortion that are happening on Discord. On the left, this is a story that a parent posted in a parenting Facebook group where an 11-year-old that she was in contact with was contacted through Discord, groomed, and then taken right from her front yard. She was missing for several days. She was found unharmed, she was found, but she was not unharmed from this experience. So that is a direct experience from a parent on Discord. And then on the right, you'll see some screenshots taken from a Discord chat where a man was trying to extort a young girl through intimate images that she had shared with him, and trying to extort her to send more. You can see he's threatening to send the images to people she knows, including her mother. Just really, really egregious examples of harassment happening on Discord. So Discord safety settings are currently not set to the default of the highest level of safety for minors across all Discord apps. We tested this ourselves using that 13-year-old account. No parental controls are available for families looking for added protection for their children through Discord. So for the second year in a row, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation is asking Discord to develop and implement parental controls so parents can monitor and streamline their children's experience on Discord. They need to automatically default minor age accounts to the highest level of safety and privacy available on the Discord platform. They claim to already do this, but research revealed that this is actually not standard across all the different versions of Discord. Discord has mobile app and a desktop app, for example. They need to automatically block any and all minor aged accounts from joining servers that contain age-restricted content. This, again, was tested by Nkosi, and we were able to see that the 13-year-old account was able to access and join servers despite being blocked from certain channels within those servers. And then Discord, we demand that you develop and implement moderation strategies that proactively detect and remove pornography. This is especially important for servers that are dedicated to trading hardcore and non-consensual material. And then finally, provide meaningful education to all users and parents on the potential harms and risks associated with exploitation and abuse on Discord, prominently featuring and highlighting reporting processes on all forms of Discord's interface. So now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Jake Roberson, who is the Vice President and Director of Communications, who will present our next target.
Over the years, Google has taken important steps forward to combat sexual exploitation, oftentimes in response to advocacy from Nkosi and thousands of passionate advocates just like you. These changes have included improving Chromebook safety for students, establishing policies to remove apps and ads that promote compensated sexual relationships, i.e. sugar dating, from Google Play, ceasing pornographic Google ads, expanding Wi-Fi filtering tools, and improving the visibility of safe search filtering options inside Google Images. Our contacts at Google have also met with survivors of sex trafficking to learn how their products affect them, something not all corporations are willing to do. And we thank and applaud Google for these many improvements. But this begs a question. Why is Google on the Dirty Dozen list again? Well, to quote Peter Parker's Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. Given Google's vast impact and abundant resources, it is necessary to raise awareness when poorly constructed policies and practices cause real-world harm to survivors and facilitate sexual abuse and exploitation. Google Search facilitates access to sexual abuse content, including graphic videos and images of sex trafficking, child sexual abuse, and racist and rape-themed pornography. Google has failed to implement survivor-centered practices to remove non-consensually recorded and shared sexual content from Google search results. In fact, when the Nkosi Law Center was reviewing the content for this Dirty Dozen list and doing its due diligence, this review resulted in a report to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children as one of the rape-themed websites under the results in Google search for forced sex porn displayed apparent child sexual abuse material, also known as CSAM, on its homepage. These websites are advertising and hosting real, not simulated, real rape. And there is absolutely zero reason rape-themed searches should be yielding any pornographic sites. And it is irresponsible for Google to permit these websites to be indexed in Google search at all. Google also has yet to prioritize survivor-centered practices for removing non-consensual sexual content from search results, thereby leaving many victims to live with ongoing trauma and extensive consequences to their daily lives as their abuse is replayed over and over again online. Google's reporting mechanisms for such content are overly complicated, re-traumatizing, and insufficient. Although we know that Google is reviewing its reporting systems with the goal of making them more intuitive and less cumbersome, Google is currently making a policy choice to, by default, believe the hosts or uploaders of this content over the people who are depicted and being harmed in the material. In other words, the onus is on the survivors to prove that consent was not given, which isn't possible, rather than placing the burden on those who are posting the material to prove that consent was obtained. Google and the uploaders and hosts of this material have a lot less to lose by removing the content than the survivors have to lose with images of their abuse circulating on the internet. Holding 92% of the search engine market share, Google has the power to help survivors heal by stemming content of their abuse from resurfacing in Google search. It is time, once again, to call on Google to put survivors first. And we encourage you to take action today at endsexualexploitation.org/Google. Let's go, folks. Now, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce my friend and colleague, Dr. Stephanie Powell.
As a retired Los Angeles police officer, and now the Director of Survivor Services, I have witnessed the aftermath of sexual exploitation, and Kik is just one more example and needs to be held accountable. Kik is a free messaging app that has a very young user base. 70% of all users are between the ages of 13 and 24. Kik has been flagged by the media, law enforcement, as a hotbed for grooming, child sexual abuse, pornography, and child sexual abuse material, despite the fact that they have policies banning it. Kik contains severe sexual content. But get this, Kik provides very little safety features and almost no moderation, relying on user reports to catch bad behavior. This is especially concerning when so many of those users are children, our children. All you need is an email address in order to sign up. So as you can see, your children, our children, are not protected. One teen chat app has been featured in more than 1,100 child sexual abuse cases in the last 5 years, according to the BBC. Of 29 police forces that supplied information to the BBC, all but one child exploitation case involved Kik. Police say they are frustrated with Kik's response, with one detective saying that getting information from Kik for investigative purposes is a bureaucratic nightmare. Kik has a meet new people feature, which pairs you with random strangers to chat with. Now that's bone chilling. And so here's an example. Kik's features and lack of moderation allow children to access pornography and inappropriate groups in only a few clicks. When Nkosi researchers set up a fake Kik account as a 13-year-old girl, we followed the Kik given prompts to search for common interests and to find public groups to join. The popular search suggestions included Pokemon, Fortnite, and innocuous tags. When we clicked on these tags, we found groups like porno and sin, Fortnite flap, and pretty porn stars. They were automatically suggested to us and appeared as the top listed suggestions. As you can see, Kik is not protecting your children, our children. However, based on what you have heard today, now you can. Kik needs to be held responsible. And now I will switch over to my hard-working colleague, Lena Nielsen.
Meta. So Meta, formerly Facebook, has changed its names, but sadly the extensive problems remain the same. Meta's platforms, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger are consistently ranked by law enforcement, survivors, researchers, child safety advocates as one of the most dangerous places on the internet, rife with sex trafficking, grooming, child sex abuse material, and a host of other crimes. The fact that we're featuring Meta is likely not surprising to you, but we felt it was important to continue educating people on this concept of the metaverse and to begin aggressive advocacy to stem the harms that we're already witnessing. We also want to continue bolstering the momentum of justified outrage that we witnessed in the second half of 2021 globally, but in particular from members of Congress, the media, general public, and advocates from a broad range of issue areas when Facebook whistleblower revealed what we all knew instinctively, that Meta knows it's harming users, especially girls. But instead of announcing or implementing truly sweeping and substantive changes, Facebook pursued new profit-making ventures like Instagram for Kids, paused but not off the table, a subscription-based model similar to OnlyFans, which we know is a haven of exploitation, and of course, the rebranding of itself in the quest to lead us all into the metaverse. So what is the metaverse? In simple terms, a metaverse can be described as a network of virtual worlds that are focused on social connection. It could be virtual or augmented reality, plus social media, gaming, commerce, and more. And despite how people have been speaking about it, it actually doesn't yet exist. I invite you to read more about metaverse and Meta's vision for the metaverse on our page. This move toward augmented and virtual reality is, like all tools, neutral in nature. And we've seen some incredible uses for VR, including in the medical field and even in combating human trafficking. However, many unique dangers already exist in virtual reality that will likely expand as the technology becomes more popular and easily accessible. In fact, instances of sexual abuse and harassment through Meta's virtual reality have already made headlines when a psychotherapist who actually researches the metaverse was gang raped within a minute of stepping into Horizon Worlds. I almost said virtually gang raped, and we really encourage everyone to not use that term because the effects are very real and in some instances can almost feel exactly the same as being physically assaulted and sometimes even worse. So we're saying, gang raped or sexually assaulted in the virtual world. And I invite especially the press to use those terms. There were so many people being groped online that Facebook belatedly added a personal boundary feature for avatars that will now be on by default. You can read this chilling quote from the psychotherapist, that it also happened so fast that this adult who studies the metaverse, it happened so fast, she couldn't even put the safety barriers in place, calling it surreal and a nightmare. And while Facebook's portal into this concept of the closest thing that's the concept to the metaverse, which is Horizon Worlds, is supposedly 18+, there's growing evidence that many children are already playing in an adult space with no protection for minors. In fact, the app for setting up Oculus Quest headset, also owned by Facebook, Meta, was the most downloaded app on Christmas week. And I know personally a lot of people who got it for their children. In an interview with the Washington Post, when the journalist asked whether Meta views young children on Horizon Worlds as a problem, the spokeswoman emphasized that social VR is an emerging and rapidly evolving medium, and that the company is figuring things out as it goes. This dismissive comment literally terrifies me. This is from a company that, again, is ranked among the worst for sex trafficking, grooming, predators, and a host of other ills, just exposed for knowingly harming their users. And their response when asked about children in VR is, we're figuring things out. Not acceptable. And they declined to even answer if they were taking any measures to protect children from exploitation or grooming. It's socially irresponsible and reckless to apply a figure it out as it goes along mentality for issues as serious as sexual assault and harassment. Products should not be launched unless they are designed with safety in mind and thoroughly vetted. And of course, we continue to press on Meta for problems on their other platforms, in particular, Instagram and WhatsApp. Instagram, we've been working with for a long time, and admittedly, they have made a lot of great changes. Next slide, please. Made a lot of great changes, but pedophiles are openly grooming children online. Sex buyers go to Instagram to purchase both adults and children. And we hear from our survivor allies who've been working with together on Instagram that children in particular are being bought and sold on Instagram. Next slide, please. And OnlyFans and Pornhub, which again, known for hosting sexual abuse, CSAM, rape material, both have the coveted blue check of being a verified account on Meta, which gives it both legitimacy and easy access to minors. I have several accounts on various platforms as a minor. And as Antigone Davis, the head of global safety, was testifying in front of Congress and literally saying, we are creating an age-appropriate experience for users. I was on my 13-year-old account looking at the OnlyFans verified page that was promoting having a chat with a pornography performer on OnlyFans. You can see here in the slide, we continuously see young children. This child could not have been more than 3 years old, with pedophiles talking about it and sharing links to more child sex abuse material. And here on the right, you can see Pornhub, next career goals. Again, this is what's being advertised to me as a 13-year-old. And WhatsApp pursuing end-to-end, has end-to-end encryption, another platform that we know is being used by predators with very little safety features in place. So please help us make Meta prioritize. Unless they prioritize sweeping and significant safety improvements at the pace that it develops new profit-producing products and features, the existing harms will continue to grow, and Meta will unleash new forms, literally new worlds, new universes, as the name implies, of sexual exploitation. Please help us hold them accountable. So you've heard everyone's call to action. This list and the activists at Galvanize has, again, spurred so much policy change. It's inspired legislative action. It's catalyzed culture change. And you have the power as consumers, as shareholders, as concerned citizens, as the press, to make your voice heard. We have been told over and over again that one letter, one email equals about 1,000 customers. Sometimes hearing from the public is enough, but by you writing, it often helps us kick open doors for us and our allies to work with these institutions. And we do work with a lot of them quite often. And it also gets the attention of policymakers who can pass legislation when corporations aren't regulating themselves. So we've often presented evidence that we have found from the Dirty Dozen list. We've shared the petitions and emails from you. And we've, of course, brought survivor testimony. So again, please do act. And again, the Dirty Dozen list reveal is just the beginning of our sustained advocacy. We're committed to pursuing these changes. We invite you to stand with us today and throughout the year to keep the pressure up. So how can you take action? You go to dirtydozenlist.com. Even if you took every single action on there, there's let's say one or two at least with each of the targets. And some of those are downloading material to learn more, but actions that we're sending to executives, emails, petitions, or to members of Congress, you could hit every single action in 10 minutes. And again, every single signature does help us. And then of course, please encourage friends and family, even if they just learn about one new target and take action, it can have the ripple effects. You know, a huge part of the Dirty Dozen list is also educating the public, educating families, sounding the alarm on apps that we see are problematic and maybe flying under the radar, products that we all use that, again, we want people to call them out as customers. So please take some time after this presentation to act. And stay tuned throughout the year, because again, this is an ongoing campaign, and we keep the pressure pretty high. So I have some questions here. Someone asked, they said, Amazon is no longer on the list. Did they take some action to warrant removal? Or are there others on the list just higher priority now? So I'm going to just answer this in a bit more general. We do often get, how do you choose Dirty Dozen lists? First of all, we're constantly collecting evidence in the course of our work. So first and foremost, we always prioritize speaking with survivors and listening to them about where are they seeing exploitation? Where are they being exploited? What companies and entities do they want us to prioritize and sound the alarm on? So for example, Kanakuk camps, we had several survivors come to us saying, please expose the systemic child sex abuse that's been going on at Kanakuk for decades, with very little accountability or transparency. We also go to law enforcement, ask them what they're seeing and what's problematic. We go to allies, and then of course we do our own research, many hours of work, not fun, I can tell you. And again, often as minors, just to see what are kids being exposed to. And then if there are current events, like I mentioned, the pandemic, we wanted to raise certain entities that were simultaneously profiting at exorbitant rates while at the same time were hosting the most harm and not doing anything, right? So like they're profiting, they could use some of that profit to stem abuse and did not. Sometimes we pick corporations, again, that have like a large market share, right? There's a lot of entities in an industry, and sometimes we do, we can't, they all are problematic, but we decide this one has the largest market share. And if we can get them to change, we can see ripple effects. There's also, we want to feature a variety of issues, right? So systemic child sexual abuse, again, with Kanakuk, or the image-based abuse that I mentioned. So we also have campaigns throughout the year. So Amazon, for example, it's been on our list for many years, and they have made some substantive changes. When we were looking at the list and balancing where we thought we needed to elevate some corporations, we just felt like others were a bit more timely and urgent. And again, because we had been featuring Amazon for so long, we didn't think it needed to be on the Dirty Dozen list. Now, that doesn't mean that we aren't continuing to push on them. We work with about 40 corporations at any given time. So just because they're not on the Dirty Dozen list doesn't mean we're not working with them. And we also have campaigns throughout the year. So sometimes we kind of save them. If we know we're going to be doing another campaign that's maybe geared toward a specific industry, let's say the gaming industry, or an issue that we want to feature. And so we know we're going to raise attention to them at another point in time. And I love this question. When a company takes efforts to eliminate trafficking and sexually exploited material that may have allowed in the past, how does Nkosi think and support their efforts? I love this. And yes, it's so important to thank them. And you'll see if you cite up that we often do encourage our supporters to thank them when they make changes. We publicize blogs, we release press releases, we send them personal thank you notes. We will send them, for example, with Chromebooks, we had a thank you petition that we had people sign, and hundreds of people signed it. They left messages. We shared that with our Google contacts, and they in turn shared it with their engineers. And I think that's so incredible, right? And it inspires them to make change, and they see that people, when we're applauding things that they're doing, I think it really does have an impact. We also have a campaign called the Dignity Defense Alert, where we also elevate corporations that are like really getting it right, or we think are really trying. And MasterCard, while we're still pushing on with them on some things, we gave them a big award this year because they passed common sense measures to stem the pornography industry, and passed strict measures that pornography merchants had to comply with if their banks were going to continue working with them. For example, being able to verify age and consent and have a very rapid removal system when someone reported non-consensual images. Whereas Visa, on the other hand, by contrast, hasn't done anything, and they haven't met with survivors, whereas MasterCard has. So yes, very important to thank them. So again, if you'll join us and join our listserv, you'll definitely be seeing those invitations to thank the corporations when they're making change. Let's see. If Visa is out, should we lean toward MasterCard? Yeah, I actually canceled my Visa cards, and I am on MasterCard. We usually don't advocate for boycotts. We do feel that proactive pressure is much more powerful. But again, you can also, individual choices. And I really did feel that MasterCard was making a really making a strong effort, and Amex as well just has a policy of not being used on any pornography sites. So Amex and MasterCard are in my wallet. Again, feel free to reach out to us at public@nicosi.com. Again, either with your thoughts, questions, or what are you seeing? Please do visit dirtydozenlist.com, read more, especially about the other targets that we may not have featured during this presentation. Review the proof. It's very eye-opening. Again, we do blur images. It is difficult, but we do a lot, many hours of research. Take action, invite a friend, review and share the tools and resources. We'll keep you updated on the progress, and we'll continue testing out new tactics and approaches, and we'll keep enlisting your help. Thank you so much for joining us in fostering a world free of sexual abuse and exploitation.